Stellar Fundraising Auctions presents Black Tie and Tails. Brought to you by our partner Sojourn Ventures, featuring your co-hosts Greg Quiroga and Devon Bell. Welcome to Black Tie and Tails, where we share tales of triumph and tragedy from behind the scenes in the wonderful world of fundraising auctions. I'm Greg Quiroga, half of your co-hosting team, joined as always by my co-host Devon Bell.
Hello all.
And, something I've always wanted to say, Devo, is hit that like and subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube.
That's right. Smash that like button.
Smash that button. And if you're listening on Spotify or any of the other podcast apps, add us to your favorites and your downloads. We appreciate you being here and listening. This episode, we're talking about dancing in the dark.
Okay, Bruce Springsteen.
And there's a lot of ways we could go with this. And I think the first place we'll start is one of our unwritten rules as fundraising auctioneers is not to hang out and party with the people.
Right. Actually, when we tell each other the stories of how our event went, it often ends with, and then I packed up my S and I got the F out of there.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them is just sheer professionalism, right? Though we engage with the crowd and we want to entertain and encourage, at the end of the day, unless you're doing your kid's school, at the end of the day, it's not our community. It's not our place. And we want to maintain that level of professionalism in engaging with the crowd. So, we say our goodbyes, we grab our stuff, and we get out of there. And at an event I'm doing in Sonoma County, it's a school event at the point in time I'd been working with for numerous years. It was one of the first big school events I picked up. Like, in fact, I remember the first time I went to plug in my sound gear, and I'd only been at it for a couple of years at that point. I had my sound gear for like less than a year, and I felt like, this microphone is my Excalibur. Like, I wield it. It is a beautiful piece of equipment. And I take it to the sound guy, and he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, we can plug it in and see if it works. So fast forward many, many years. I've just finished up doing their auction. And so I'm back at the soundboard, getting my gear, packing up, trying to get out of there, saying goodbye to the sound guys, because I love sound crew, men, women, or otherwise. I love the people who help make the auction sound good, because without them,
I often, because I can walk out on the floor of the reception because I'm dressed appropriately, I will often grab a canapé and bring it over to sound people. Yeah. Because you want to be in good with them, because they're a gatekeeper to your success. Yeah, and they're just people. Like, I've actually worked that job 30 years and a lifetime ago. I was an AV tech in San Francisco. I have sat there and listened to, not that this happens at our events, but I did conventions, and you're just sitting there listening to presentations about stuff that, like, science, granular presentations, and you're like, ugh. So they're not there for the fundraising. They appreciate anything you can do for them. And just in general, treat people like people. Make friends, right? Yeah, and you already have something in common, which is you both want that program to succeed, and you both sit around for hours and wait for the event to start. And so you got something to talk about right there.
So at this particular school event, I go up to the sound people afterwards, and I'm packing my stuff out, and we're all like, bumping knuckles and saying that was great. And one of the moms from the committee comes up and kind of tries to grab me by the shoulder and say, come on, the dance floor's open. You're dancing with me.
Oh, no.
Right. And I'm like, always flattered, right? Like, yeah, thank you. No, my wife and I have a very hard and fast rule. We don't dance without each other. I don't dance without my wife. Right. And just like that says a lot of stuff. Right. That gets a lot of it up front. Like, A, I'm happily married. B, I am capable of dancing, because I can tear up a rug.
I dance hard and fast, actually.
I can tear up a rug. But I'm also a professional here to do a job. And so please, no. And the sound guy's looking at me like, oh, this is a new one. Like, I haven't seen this before. And this mom is refusing to take no for an answer. Very, very, pushy in a way I've never seen before. Entitled is the word I'm looking for. And she keeps nope.
Karen on the dance floor.
Oh gosh, yes. And this is before Karen was a thing. And she says those words, she says the quiet part out loud. She says, I paid you to be here. You have to come dance with me.
You are just a gigolo.
Right. Yeah. Everywhere I go. People.
Musical references on this episode, folks.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Diamond Dave. And so I like, and I'm trying like, no, and she's like, no. And she's like bodily dragging me towards, and we're like towards the dance floor.
No means no.
Yeah, totally. and so I like this. I see where this is going. Right? Like this is a battle I'm not going to win. It's a war I am 100% going to win though, because I know my contact from the school is going to have my back and be so mad on my behalf.
I don't see nothing wrong with a little bump and grind, Greg.
And so she takes me, like she drags me into the dancing area. It was a separate room where the dance floor is set up, and I kind of like dance out, like do like the total white guy,
the 80s,
white guy move out onto the floor, like make one little pass across the dance floor, do a little spin move on her, and then like dance straight out, grab my stuff, and head straight for registration, where I tell my contact, I'm like, hey, I just want you to know this mom just did these things, and I'm not offended. I'm in no way hurt by this. This isn't like, but it's not appropriate.
It very much touches on the tension that we have where we want people to have their inhibitions lowered, right? Yeah. Have some wine, have your inhibition. We're partying, we're hooting and hollering, we're having fun. But while we do the auction part, the inhibitions lowered are within the framework of the auction and whereas when they clear out the chairs and fire up the music firing up the Gotta Be Starting Something by Michael Jackson, and now everyone that's
not the something I want you starting.
Yeah, exactly. We've got to not be starting something, Mom. And so which is exactly why all of us, I think, have an ethos of you pack up and you get out of there. It won't get better from you staying. It can only get worse.
Yeah, nothing.
You won't improve it.
Yeah, again, we're representatives of the organizations with which we work, and we're there to take the potential that a committee and a staff and volunteers have spent months building and turn that potential into fun, into donations, right? And sometimes we have to engage with people in ways that probably feels more intimate for the bidders than it does for us, right? Because we're doing it so often, right? Like we're engaging multiple, like in the Fund a Need, you're going through the levels, and I try to look everybody in the eye. I look at their paddle, memorize their paddle, then look them in the face and say their number 1, 2, 3, $1,000.
Sometimes you go like this.
Yeah,
you like right.
Yeah, and like we're trying to have these very engaging emotional moments with people, and I'm always shocked by how well people remember me when I come back, right? Like I don't think of myself as any sort of level of celebrity in any way, shape, or form. And so when somebody comes up to me a year later and says, "Oh my gosh, it's you, the auction dude," and I'm like, "Oh, like I honest to God mean it." Like I am humbled by that. And when they say I've had $1,000 in my head for the last year, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like the sweetest thing anybody's ever said to me. And so there's this intimate relationship that's built, but it's meant to have, as you said, boundaries.
Yeah.
And
wait, I got to tell you that, the opposite of your, I remember from last year, and I've been thinking about that all year, is one time I did the event, and it was an older crowd, and this older lady came up to me and said, after the auction, and said, "Oh, you were so wonderful. I just loved you. You were much better than the guy last year." And you can guess who the guy was last year. So it was a year of great improvement for me in my performance.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Or the times when they're like, "Oh my gosh, you were so great. Yeah, you were great. I loved you last year too." And you're like,
I didn't.
That wasn't me. That wasn't me.
I just got this gig.
Yeah. I always just say thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm trying to learn to accept praise and just say thank you.
They say, "Were you the guy last year?" And then you go, Well, did you like the guy from last year?
I mean, I've been the guy for a long time. I don't know about you. Speaking of a long time, we have been partners with our sponsor, Sojourn Ventures, for quite a long time. Black Tie and Tails is brought to you by our partner, Sojourn Ventures. When your auction is in need of some international travel, check out Sojourn Ventures. Sojourn curates trips to Italy, Bali, Spain. They just Venice, and they just added a new section in Italy too. Oh my gosh, I'm going to feel so stupid for not having looked this up and put this in. It'll be in the video accompanying this.
It's in Italy. That's all you need to know.
They've got a new trip in Italy that I will make sure I look up and get on our next podcast. But they offer a dozen curated packages that include round-trip airport transfers, full-body massages, daily breakfasts, in-home chef dinners, and more. All of your buyers get 2 full years to redeem their trip and top-level concierge service. Check out sojournventurestravel.com or look for the link in the bio of this podcast.
Yes to all of that. Where's my paddle?
Where's my paddle? And I know many auctioneers who have taken Sojourn Ventures trips. Buddy of mine from Seattle, Nelson J., just came back from doing a family Italy vacation where he took his whole 14 people or something insane.
Extended family.
We'll have to have Nelson on sometime. We can have him tell you the story. But they stayed in 2 villas in Cortona, had a great time. Speaking of great times, not all tales of the dance floor are improper or are about empty dance floors. I mean, you've got one where there's a party on the dance floor.
Oh yeah. Okay. So this is actually kind of happening right now. This is current, and they are a school that has a very engaged and excited, to be together socially kind of group. And so their event is a success, and then their party and the dancing it up afterwards is a huge success. And so what we're going to try doing actually is, they have their contract with the venue, but you can pay a bunch of extra money to have it stay open later than their usual time.
Right.
And so we haven't decided yet if we're going to do either a tall poppy wins the whole thing and they're a hero, or, hey, we need this many paddles at $100. But basically we're going to auction off keeping the party going an extra hour at the end of the night.
Crowdsource it.
Right. And so, another reason to both give and to feel good about it. And I assume that if that succeeds and we are going an extra hour, that is going to kick the party up multiple notches.
Well, and that's fun in the sense that you're acknowledging the culture of the crowd and at the same time sort of delaying the decision making until the moment when you really can ascertain whether they're in it or not. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so often that was sort of a lofty way of saying that's a great way of not paying for it until you're sure you want it.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
Because so often what I see at non-school related events is the opposite, where they're like, we have to have a dance floor. There has to be a DJ. There has to be a band or whatever it is, and they spend a lot of money on a band. And then if things get delayed, we need to keep the silent auction open for an extra 20 minutes. Okay, well, that means, we're biting into time. Or the entrees get delayed and now we're biting into time. And so suddenly 9:30 on a Friday night or a Saturday night, and everybody's, if the average age is over 45 years old, 9:30, that dance floor kicks into high gear. The DJ throws down the beats, and there's 6 people on the dance floor.
Bedtime for many of the crowd. Yeah.
It's just not. It's not. So the events where that is potentially a thing of schools, often the dance floors in schools go hand in hand or foot on whatever. I'm not going to try to take that one any farther than that. But I think that's a fun way, because then you're like, okay, as long as the venue's cool with you making the last minute decision and the DJ's paid for no matter what, right? I mean, the DJ's probably, as long as all that stuff's taken care of, be like, hey, you guys want to party, then let's pony up. And it also, it cleverly disguises the added cost without adding it on the tickets.
Yeah, our general rule is you want the price of admission to pay for the party so that every time someone raises their paddle, it actually goes to the organization.
Right.
And so, this is going to cost a little extra and you do it. And it really taps into, like you said, you got to know the vibe and you have to know the culture of your organization and of your event. And at some events, they go to a bunch of trouble to have a band or a DJ and everybody goes home. And you should know that. And at other events, it's time to go home and the contract is up and everyone's still partying hard and doesn't want to stop.
After party.
So let's take all that into account. And we got nothing against a dance floor. It's a great part of the party, but we want to mesh it with the fundraiser in a way that is most effective.
Well, and that's a great segue to the next format. I mean, I want to go back to I want to spend a bunch of time brainstorming that because I think there's a lot of fun to be had with all the different ways to try and message that, like not just the cost of keeping the party open, but I want to turn it into an additional fundraiser and be like, oh, can you make a little extra on top of that? But I look forward to hearing how it happens. Like we'll have to check back in. Let's check back in next time, everybody. Well, not next time, but after this event has taken place. But the dance floor being an integral part of the event, yes, we see dance floors all the time. At least a third of the events, I would say, have a dance floor.
And sometimes it's if you'll forgive the alliteration, it's a daunting dance floor where there is an expanse between where the stage is and where the front table is.
Yes. So that same aforementioned school, we moved their event from a tent into their gym, and we're doing and the gym, they built this huge stage because they had this big band because their crowd likes to party. Big stage, so 16 by 20 something, huge, 3 + 4 feet off the ground, really super tall, and then a 25 by 25 foot dance floor in front of it. So when I went and did my sound check and stood up on the stage, I was like, wow, there's a gulf between
is there people out there?
Me and the front tables are a long ways away. The back tables are forever. And part of the power of our job, to go back to that ability to build that seemingly intimate relationship from the stage, or not seemingly, the ability, we're asking people to do more. It's a big ask, right? Especially when you're asking people to do more at higher levels. That's why I don't apply a ton of direct pressure. You would think, you would think as an auctioneer, I spend a lot of time getting right in people's, but that's not the style. People respond to the moment, but still you want to be able to look people in the eyes to make the ask. You want to be able to see them. And so I stood on top of that stage. And again, this was early enough in my career where this hadn't become one of the check boxes for early consultation, right? So I'm like, and we'll get to this in takeaways.
It hadn't come up before this.
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to have to be on the dance floor. There's no way around it. And so it made more sense to stand on the dance floor at ground level with everybody, to be closer and be able to see them, than it did to be on the stage and be farther away and have the benefit of height looking down. Right. And there were numerous times when I did that. I worked at the Oregon Ballet in the Portland Art Museum. Beautiful, lovely space, amazing. And it's one of those ballrooms that has a built-in stage. And built-in stages are always, huge and lovely, wide, and
kind of almost overkill. They're kind of overkill for what we need. But
throw a 30-foot dance floor in front of that stage, 5 foot high and 30 feet back, and in a room that's more vertical than horizontal. And suddenly the back tables were so far away that I have pictures that will be on the YouTube of this, of me standing on the dance floor with my back, and you can see how far it is to the back rooms of the crowd. You were telling me about one time where not only were you on the dance floor, but you didn't have anything upon which to set your notes.
Yeah, I'm old school, and I remember you can imagine our job is there's a flurry before you take the stage of taking notes. Yep. How do you pronounce their name? Who is this person? Who's coming up? In what order? What are they talking about? Da, da, da. Last minute changes. Like there's a lot of information right at the end, and I remember it better.
You got me all nervous. I want to do an auction.
Right. I remember it better if I do it old school, and I have a binder with my script in it and a pen, and so I always ask for something, and I actually advocate for that anyway, not just for me, because I think it makes a focal point, and a lot of people who aren't comfortable speaking in public, it's tough to give them a microphone in their hand and get out there and work the crowd.
Like
a lectern,
a podium,
point, like some music stand, a cocktail table, something for them to stand behind, have their notes, right? And it can be for people that are nervous about talking, it can kind of be like a break between you and the audience instead of being right there. So this was an event down on the piers in San Francisco where they had a big event space. And so band's going to play and a big dance floor to where, like you said, when you are there was a podium on the stage. And when I stood at that, the front tables were far away. Right. The back tables were ridiculous. Almost couldn't read paddle numbers. So yes, I'm absolutely going to go down there, but they couldn't move the podium and they didn't have anything for me. And so my plan is, okay, I'm just going to hold my binder in my hand while I describe it. And then you know how we don't need our hands or we just use our hands for auctioning. So I'll just put it down, here on this monitor on the stage. And once it got going, I saw how unbelievably awkward it was to be messing. And then I have to turn my back to the whole audience for a second to put it down.
Yep.
And when I pick it back up, what page am I on?
So what are we on, everybody?
Right. So
no, seriously,
it doesn't have to be much, but next time I insist on something to put my little binder on. So
I used to have my own little portable music stand.
Yes, that folds down. Yeah. I'm overdue for one of those. What happened?
I left it behind.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
I did an event, and then of course, do
you do a binder?
I used to. I do.
How many times? I have left my binder behind 2 times on the podium and left.
Probably
2 times. Yeah, I do not buy an expensive binder because I just know it's going to happen. And after the event, it kind of doesn't matter. You're already out.
Yeah, I used a binder for the first 10 years. And then one of the things I found was that I do all that same scribbling, like radical note taking. And there was
no, tablet?
Well, no, hang on my notebook. I would be changing everything and doing all these last minute notes.
Right.
And then those edits would never make it to the original document. And so there was this one event I did where you did your first auction lot.
St.
Vincent de Paul,
right.
Dan Raffel.
Right.
And you'll remember that they had a bunch of dinners with priests. And there's this one priest who I always forgot to translate the notes. And every year I'd ask him, so Father, what's on the menu this year? And he'd be like, same as last year. Right. Don't you write this stuff down? And I was like, pretend I don't. Right. And so part of moving to the tablet, and this is the tablet which I speak. This is actually my second one. I first one just aged out after 8 years. What are you going to do?
I hope that didn't happen in a scary, a moment way.
No, it
just kept getting worse and worse. And you're like, I'm tempting fate.
Yeah. I mean, I still have it. I still use it. It's great for surfing the web. It just got a little slow.
Yeah. I will be interested to see how much of this stream of consciousness tangent makes it onto the actual podcast.
I'm gonna put it all on.
That's right.
Gonna put it all on. People want the behind the scenes of the wonderful world of fundraising auctions. There is nothing more behind the scenes than, so tell me.
I use a pen and paper.
What medium do you use? Well, I've got a quill and an ink pot.
We are spilling the tea, honey.
Oh yeah.
Forbidden secrets of auctioneers.
This is deep cuts. Deep cuts with Devo and Q. So takeaways about dancing in the dark. I mean, I think one of the biggest takeaways is know the culture of your event and leverage it, right? Like the school event that you're doing where you're going to try and you're going to find out if the crowd wants to party longer or not. I think that's great. I think that's really acknowledges that school crowds like to drink and party and have more fun. And if it were a Thursday night arts organization where the median age is over 55, I would say, I'm not sure you're going to find out that whether or not your crowd, and hey, blow me away. Like, send me pictures of your median age 55 crowd at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday night throwing down. I would love to see it.
Yeah.
Listen to these guys before anybody.
Right. Like, you are acknowledging they're a crowd who likes to party. And if the end of the night comes and they're scaring people out and everybody goes, "Aw, well, you got no one to blame for yourself if you didn't pay for the party extension."
Right. But on the flip side, as a good friend of mine says, always be collecting data. And if you...
I see that's an ABCD acronym. Really cool.
Yeah. I didn't even... Wow.
That's an ABCD.
Yeah. That's... okay. Always be collecting data everywhere.
Fucker.
Good. So, they say, like, always be collecting data. If you do something and it works, remember that. If you do something and it doesn't, well, learn from it, right? So if you hire a DJ and put up a dance floor, and at the end of your event, the only people dancing are your volunteers and your staff, maybe evaluate. Was it worth the money to give them a little party, or is there a better use of resources, right? Like, always be collecting data. One of the other things I think that is really relevant is, and we've said this many times over the course of this podcast, but evaluate the space, plan, be prepared. If you are thinking on having, if you're going to have a stage, what should they do?
If they have a stage,
if you're planning on having a dance floor, sorry.
Oh, they should be in the physical space before the event happens and look and picture. They're going to dance here. The band's going to be here. The crowd's going to be here. Yeah. So they can say, we don't even necessarily have to be that, but to be there for that, but someone should.
Someone should. And someone should always stand on stage and, have someone else stand in the back of the room where the paddles are going to be held up and say, can I see them? Is this going to work for our auctioneer? And if not, then what are some solutions, right? And we're not against dance floors. Like, one of the simplest, most straightforward solutions is to put a riser on the dance floor and it can be just for the auctioneer, right? Which, again, we don't need a big podium. I just need a place to put my notes. I use highboy cocktail tables all the time.
Right.
I use music stands all the time. I just don't travel with my own anymore. But if the dance floor is big, but the stage is, you want people on the stage, you want that focal point for the non-professional speakers, great. Just put me on a little riser in the middle of the dance floor. 4x8, it's all I need.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong or bad about an acre of dance floor. Sometimes it's just part of your space.
Yeah.
But it is wrong and bad if you have that and you didn't plan for it.
Right.
And now things are happening because of it that you could have seen coming.
And if some people don't like the look, and the thing is that the venue staff or the AV team or whoever is responsible for it, you can set and strike a riser in a matter of minutes, right? You can set a riser. It shouldn't take more than 2 minutes to wheel a riser out and put it in the middle of the dance floor. Shouldn't take more than 2 minutes to get that thing out of there, right? So it's not like we're saying have a riser in the middle of your dance floor for the duration of the dancing. We're saying you can have this temporary space from which we can do the auction and be closer to the crowd and create a more intimate moment that then disappears and you have the full dance floor. If some people don't like the thought or the look of that, then put a runway on your stage and divide the dance floor and also give that wild partying crowd a place to get up on stage and dance inappropriately later once we've left.
And actually doing the live program on the stage and then the auctioneers down on the dance floor, or doing the live auction from the stage and then the fun to need you down to the dance floor.
Sure.
It can be not even just making the best of a difficult situation. It can be actively good and a feature, not a bug, because it changes the vibe. It makes it intimate, and it makes all of a sudden, if the person's right up at your table, it's hard to not be engaged.
Change gets attention.
Yes.
With the large
changing
crowd.
Gears. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why I'll build and build and build and build and going and then suddenly back down. Because that change in tone and tempo, people are like, wait, something is different. If you're just rah, rah, rah all the time, people are like, wow, whatever. They tune that out.
Yeah.
Right? And there are a lot of good reasons why we GTFO when we're done with an event, right? Why we leave as soon as possible. And I mean, one of them is just impropriety, right? Like the goal for us is to remain as a professional representative of the organizations with which we work.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, but when I come off stage, I'm usually pretty jacked up on adrenaline.
Yeah. Even if I, don't feel like it's going to make me excited. It's just another auction. When you come off the stage, you just can't help but be jacked up because we're channeling all that energy through us, right? If it's going well. If it goes well, then it is us channeling the energy, and it crackles inside you. Like you say, Greg, coming off the stage, you don't trust your filter.
Oh yeah. I mean, one of the things I had to learn on stage was like, keep that filter tight. Like 99.9% of what I think during an auction never makes it to my mouth, right? Like just because all the things I think aren't relevant.
That's
right. You don't need a ton of jokes, don't need a ton of tangents. I mean, you can tell by the length of this podcast, when I get turned loose on tangents, it's a dangerous thing. But as soon as I'm off the stage, all of a sudden those filters, like somebody asks how you're doing, like, oh, hey, auctioneer, how are you? And what they want is, I'm great, buddy. How about you? And what they get is, oh, well, I'm doing a little good. Like right now, like I've been having I sprained my knee and then I sprained my wrist. And they're like, no. And I'm like, yeah, I know. This is the TMI Greg. So I got to go. TMI Greg's no good for the crowd. But overall, like, yeah, I think we're not opposed to dance floors.
Let's just state that for the record.
Like I got nothing against dance floors. So dance floor cancel culture doesn't need to come after me right now. But I think
cancel culture,
cancel. I think it's always important to try to be as strategic about everything that you're doing in your fundraising auction, right? And that includes the space. Like make the most use of the space by measuring twice
before you cut
and cutting once. Thank you, listener, for joining us for this episode of Black Tie and Tails and joining us on this journey. We appreciate you. One more time, if you've made it this far, you got to hit that like and smash that subscribe, or smash that like and hit that subscribe button on YouTube. As always, you can find our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and all your favorite podcast distribution channels. You can also find it at blacktieandtails.com. Thank you for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you on our next episode, Out on a Limb. Ooh.